All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Observing Fullerton podcast. I am greeted here with Joe Stillman, who is an Academy Award nominee and writer for the novel The Man Who Came and Went. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for being here at my place. So.
Yeah, no problem. It was a drive, but we got over it.
This is why you'll succeed in this business.
Thank you. So first, just tell us a little bit about the book.
The book is called The Man Who Came and Went, and it's about a grill cook, the new grill cook at Maybell's Diner in the small town of Hadley, who has, it's discovered, has this peculiar ability to mind read people's orders. And it's about how what he does and the way he cooks that actually changes the lives of everybody who kind of comes into the diner.
Yeah. So what inspired you to write this book? What made you want to write this specific story?
Well, for a long time I was kind of intrigued by, the idea of thinking about like where do people come from? And I know that's a really bizarre thing to say, but there's a Wordsworth poem, and I'm not going to be able to remember it well, but to kind of misquote it, it talks about how, our star has elsewhere its setting. And around the culture, there's the idea of like home, like this is a temporary place and home is where we kind of were before this. So I got to thinking that it would be really interesting to kind of play with a character who, came to Earth in a way to kind of visit. Didn't want to get too committed, and so that's sort of how Bill started and kind of where it all kind of came from.
Yeah, and I do. While reading the book, it did just seem that Bill was just like a tourist, and coming to this town sort of seemed like, he was just like a tourist out of nowhere. He came in from a bus, but that's what everyone, not to spoil anything, but he came in a bus and met everybody.
And it is all kind of new to him, everything that's here. So that's the kind of unique background of his that makes him kind of like an interesting character to the people there, and kind of gives him his bizarre ability to mind read orders.
Yeah. So how was the writing process for the book?
In a word, really, really long.
Really?
Yeah, like when I was younger, I was writing spec screenplays to learn how to write screenplays. And while I was doing that, I managed to get work writing copy for movie trailer, in a world where, aliens are heroes, whatever it is,
Yeah.
All that stuff gets written. All the trailer stuff gets written. So I was kind of trying to write screenplays while making a living writing copy, first for movie trailers and then for cable promos. And so eventually I started, because I was working at Nickelodeon. I don't know if you know this, but I had the first show that I worked on was a Nickelodeon show, which you are too young to have seen, which blows my mind. It was called The Adventures of Pete and Pete. And see,
no,
look
off screen.
No bells. None of you guys, no bells.
No.
Okay. That's so funny. So I started to, from that point on, I started to kind of like get work in the business, not just writing promos and short stuff, but being able to write longer stuff. I was also working on Beavis and Butthead, so that And while that was going on, there was this story that I was trying to write as an independent screenplay. And I took to writing it, and it wasn't really there, so I took to rewriting it. And I would rewrite it between each job. Now, this is some process that started in the early 90s. And, my boilerplate kind of line about this is that I would finish a draft. I would be convinced, yes, it's done. My time is justified, only to work on another job and then come back to this and realize it wasn't there. And so finally, to make a ridiculously long story short, a 25-year story short, I finally decided just to write it as a novel so that it would exist in the world and not on my computer. And as soon as I started that, the story that I had been looking for kind of clicked into place. And so that's how all that turned into that over a kind of 25 plus year process.
Wow.
Crazy.
To be honest, I thought it was going to be like, I was stuck in COVID and I wrote a novel. I couldn't
I
go
wish I
anywhere.
had actually thought of that. That would have been so much better.
But why mind reading food? You mentioned earlier that the main character Bill, he can mind read people's food orders. So why specifically food? And
No reason except that it's just the circumstance. He comes to the town, he actually just sort of shows up and he just wants to go around, and just by circumstance he winds up on a bus, and by circumstance a bus takes him and drops him off at this town called Hadley outside of Maybell's diner, and he goes in just to check it out, and while he's there, the grill cook who works there quits, and he sees eggs on the grill that need to be stirred, and so he goes and stirs it and gets a job as the cook.
oh, okay. I was thinking that the food is the area or the time when you can actually commune with other people. I guess I was
No,
overthinking.
actually, there's something to that. There's something to that as related to empathy. We go, I don't know how to say this without being like a little bit on the pretentious side, but basically, Bill has the ability to really feel what another person is feeling and going through. And that includes what they really need, not just what they need in terms of what they're hungry for, but what they need in terms of what's going on in their lives and what's hurting for them, and how will food actually kind of like help them and fix
Yeah.
them. And he has this desire to kind of help where help is needed.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned empathy, because I feel like this entire book was just centered around just feeling how other people feel, and I think that's sort of what we need in this day and age. We don't really think about the other people or stuff.
Absolutely. It's so easy to go through your day and like, with this guy, don't stop at the light, I got to get through this light. There's
Yeah.
just so many ways in which our lives keep us like off each other and onto just like the busyness, the intensity, our own story, so to speak. And Bill doesn't really have much of his own story, so he really is able to connect with other people.
Live through other people's lives.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite character to write? There's a lot of characters. My personal favorite is Harold, granted, since I am the news reporter here. But who is your favorite?
It's funny, your audience won't know it, but Harold is like you said, the news reporter.
Yes.
So I can see why you would totally connect with him. It's funny. None of the characters are me, and yet some of them actually really are. I had always heard that write what you know, and this is totally not autobiographical, and yet I was able to draw on so much of me. And there's Maybell, the owner of the diner, whose love life is all twisted up in knots, and Martin, who's just trying to, a visitor to town who's drawn by Bill and trying to figure out what his life is turning into. But I guess of all the characters, the one I feel like the most like love for and connection with would be Belutha.
Really?
Even though she's a 16-year-old girl, I totally connect with how she feels about life.
Yeah. And there were times when I was reading the book, and not to give any spoilers, but she's a little bit of a downer, but it's justified. If you go through the amount of hurt that someone goes through, then you're gonna see the world in a different light, a more negative light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say stick with her because you're not done yet. And,
Not done yet.
I think there's more Belutha that you might connect with.
Yeah, it was a little, I wouldn't say, yeah, I like that she is a downer, and not because she's just a downer. She has a reason why she...
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
And then, so what is this book about? I can give like 10 different reasons on what the actual book is about. What I personally think it is just how one small little thing can change someone's life. Like in real life standards, or just waving hi and smiling at someone can make someone have a good day, or in this case, make them a good meal, make them the meal that they need. Am I hitting the mark on it?
I think I agree with that. And I think that the book is most definitely about that, if not entirely, at least partially. We live in a world that is not necessarily the kindest place, and that's not meant to be like a societal kind of, it's human nature, right? We often don't connect with each other, and we're living in a time when we're really seeing that manifest. I don't want to bite off too much, But the idea of connecting with each other and feeling for another person is a really valuable part of human life. Empathy is kind of considered to be one of the highest traits, that a human has. Supposedly something that elevates humans from animals, but actually that's not entirely true. If you hang out with a really sweet dog or cat, there is a lot of empathy that goes on there, a lot that we can learn from them. And for me, it's also a little bit about the nature of life. And I don't know if this will mean something for you, but when you get to the end, you'll see a little bit more of what I meant by that, and see if that actually does something for you.
All right. And there are quotes throughout the entire book from Bill. So what was the reasoning behind those quotes scattered throughout the book?
Yeah. There is an interview about halfway through, or a little bit earlier, that Bill gives to Harold, your favorite character, and pieces of that interview are interspersed throughout the book, and it's really Bill talking very directly about his experience of what life is, of what it means to be outside, not like an alien, but outside of Earth, and not in a physical form, and what life is like from that experience and from the experience of actually being human. We take all this for granted. We take this as all complete reality, even though life is like, it won't seem it to you guys, you're all young, but like a 10-minute journey. I mean, it's so fast and so temporary. And so, Bill is somebody in these like little snippets who talks a little bit about what it means to be human in ways that we're not really normal, that we don't normally think about it.
Yeah. What was the inspiration for Bill? I know we sort of covered what inspired you to write, but what was the inspiration for that character who is an outsider, who is empathetic? Was there someone?
I don't know. I told you that I had spent like a lot of years rewriting the story when it was a screenplay. And that was all done because I didn't get Bill. And that was in part because, I thought for a movie audience, you have to kind of like bury who he is so deep underneath, because you don't want to kind of do anything that's going to like give people pause or maybe put people off. And in a novel, I was free to not feel restrained. And so I kind of discovered him and was able to kind of talk much more frankly about him, or tell his story much more frankly in a novel. And so I kind of discovered it as I went.
Oh, all right. Well, that's about it for the book. Mind if I ask you some questions?
Sure.
Okay. So recently, the way that we met at a Shrek rave, and you are the writer of Shrek.
Just to say, one of the writers.
One of the writers of Shrek. Are you tired of the attention?
Writers get so little attention
okay.
in this world. So, the Shrek rave where we met, it was about 3 weeks ago, and it was...
It was in Anaheim, so it's still close to Fullerton, before you guys comment. But
yeah, it was a thrill because the project was done a long time ago, and we're just as a writer, you work on something, then you move on, and so it was just so exciting to know that the movie was still like a factor for people.
Yeah, carries on to my next question. Did you think that it was going to be as culturally impactful when you were one of the writers?
Oh no, I'm still not sure what you mean by that. I don't know if it's what does that mean, culturally impactful. All I know is that a lot of people showed up, and then raves are kind of really cool, and they're going on, which is great.
It's very huge. The movie is very.
Really? That's cool.
It's like, how would you describe it? People off camera.
Almost like a cult classic,
Oh,
it's
cool.
Like, it has a following that blew up even like way after.
Yeah.
It surprised us all, right? It was really big when it opened, when you guys were that tall.
Yeah.
And so that was a shock, and a pleasant shock. And I guess I thought at the time, well, you work on a lot of stuff, and if you're really lucky, one of the things you work on does well. And we enjoyed it, and then kind of moved on,
All right.
So I was so thrilled a few weeks ago when I went to the rave to see everybody in costume, and people were still digging it. That was amazing.
All right. And last question is, will there be a sequel? I still haven't read the end of it, so I don't know whether or not it is
Oh, you
open-ended.
mean to the book?
Yes. Not to Shrek. Don't worry.
If it does well, my hope, quite honestly, was to write the book that it would get enough attention somehow so that I could basically go back and turn it into a movie. Like, I felt like I discovered it as a novel, and now I know much more than I knew before. Now I know what movie, or maybe, short, like TV miniseries or something, that I would turn it into. And so, that is the dream. Books are I don't know how well books do in the world today, but if it did that would be great. And yes, I do have most definitely a strong idea for a sequel if I ever got the chance to do that.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe, for having
Totally.
share your time and your amazing gazebo here, which he built. But thank you, everybody, for watching. And if you would like to add anything, please shout out anything.
I'm going to do a promotional thing, which it's so weird to me, but just you can visit me at my website, joestillman.com, and on Instagram at Joe the Stillman. And thank you guys, all you off-camera guys, and you for trucking on down to my place.
Yeah, no problem. Go check out his book. It's on Amazon and also on Barnes & Noble. I bought it on Kindle.
Yeah, it's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and basically a bunch of other online.
And we'll have the links all in the description below. Check them out.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Thank you.